This is a response to a video by Latham Way called Feminism and Men's Rights. It's a really lovely video, that. Thanks very much for making it, because it echoes some of the thoughts that I've been having, not particularly recently, but for quite a period of time, watching the men's rights activists and men's rights movement grow in strength, it seems to me. Because what you're arguing there, and if anybody's not seen Jacob, is that your name? Yes, Jacob's video, go and have a look at it, link below. It's basically saying that that men's rights activism, as it has developed, is oppositional to feminism, to the extent of often being feminist hating. And I think anybody who spends any time at all looking at men's rights activist videos or looking at the forums could testify to that. It's although there are legitimate concerns that men particularly have in the society, it's the movement itself is a cesspit of misogyny, I'm afraid. And it's quite sad, really, because I used to be involved in the men's rights movement. It wasn't really called that. In the, I guess it would be the 1980s, so I was living in Newcastle. And it was very much seen then as a partner organisation, or a partner movement to the feminist movement. You know, we used to do things like organise creches, or that. It was about 1984 I was particularly active, and it was during the time of the miners' strike. We had a lot of kind of political unrest, social unrest, and political consciousness raising, and it was kind of really all mixed in with that. You know, so for example, women's groups would want to get involved in the protests about the PIC closures. How do you do that? Well, one of the ways you do that to allow women to participate in that way is organise creches for the kids, and so we would be involved in that kind of a thing. Or it was also about the time when Greenham Common was happening. You know, when there was a lot of camps outside the Greenham Common military base protesting about nuclear weapons, and again that required a lot of men's support. But because the shape of the Greenham Common protest was largely determined by the fact that it was a female protest, it kind of needed to be a female protest to have the impact it did. Again, it needed men to play a different kind of role in that, which was largely a support role. You know, we needed to be able to step back from that, let them do the ring around the fence and doing all that kind of stuff, and we did the childcare or other kinds of support roles, and that was great, really. And a lot of the consciousness raising for women that was taking place at that time within feminism, politically aligned feminism, you know, aligned to other kind of social justice movements, they had their echoes in consciousness raising groups that men were involved in, including myself. I was a member of what I call a men's group at that time. And although it was a little bit touchy-feely and a little bit kind of, yeah, it was a little bit like that. At the same time, it was really valuable. You know, we did sit around every Tuesday night for a couple of hours and talk about things like, you know, why don't men touch one another, or why do we resort to violence so quickly, or why do we like looking at boobs, and why do we think that's okay? We'd talk about pornography, we'd talk about masturbation, we'd talk about prostitution, we'd talk about, you know, I would talk about a feeling. It's difficult to even say that without putting on a funny voice into the quote marks. But that's the kind of thing we did, and it was really valuable, actually. I found it very valuable. I think a lot of us did, really. It was great. But things have changed a lot since then, haven't they? You know, the men's rights movement has shifted a hell of a lot since then. And different things have happened. I mean, a few kind of watershed moments for me since then, which I think are part of that transformation, is things like a kind of wider acceptance of certain aspects of male emotionality almost. That was that great moment when Gaza Gascoigne, the footballer, cried during the World Cup in, whenever it was, 1990, and there was a big deal about him crying, and it was featured in lots of the newspapers, almost as a kind of breakthrough moment for maleness, a new kind of maleness. But it's not really a new kind of maleness. It's men, you know, quite rightly and legitimately claiming the right to demonstrate emotion in public. But that's a world away from like an equal rights kind of position. Or a little bit later on, the rise of a kind of what I don't know what we'd call it, like kind of girl power, that kind of thing. You know, the Spice Girls and that kind of tacit acceptance by some women of top shelf soft porn magazines, that kind of thing. That kind of embracing of lads culture by women again was part of that. And the resurgence of lad culture generally, you know, because certainly when I was active in the 1980s, there was no anything like Maxim. Is it Maxim magazine? No, not Maxim. That's movies, isn't it? But those magazines which are kind of soft porn, you know, kind of lad mags, Loaded and those kind of things. But now, of course, they're for the last 20 years they've been everywhere, and that just seems like a huge reversal. Not because they weren't banned at that time. It's just like, why would we want those? Why would we want a magazine like that? That was the feeling. It wasn't like we felt repressed because there was no Loaded magazines on the top shelves. It's just like, that just seems fucking stupid. And now, of course, the top shelves are full of stupidity. So it just feels like that those changes have taken place, a kind of an acceptance of casual sexism and a kind of acceptance of casual emotionality, as if that's the solution, you know what I mean? Men can try and cry in public, girls can look at soft porn, everyone's equal. But, you know, it's not, is it really? And what you say there, Jacob, about the patriarchy, I mean, I have trouble with the word the patriarchy, but patriarchal forces, you know, the general kind of tendency within society to favour certain structures is undoubtedly at work, and it does, as you say, it does just prejudice all of our capacity to flourish. And like you, I guess, I would like to see the rise of a new men's rights movement that was more aligned to feminism, that had more discourse, had more conversation with feminism, that wasn't setting itself up as opposition, that recognised that that social justice and that empowerment and freedom is not a zero-sum game. It isn't, you know, the rights of a man to be free and expressive and have rights isn't necessarily gained at the expense of a woman's, and vice versa. You know, a rising tide floats all boats. I think it's one of those kind of situations, isn't it? So yeah, thanks for raising that topic. I've got nothing to add really, because you said it all. But this is just actively just a video of support. That yeah, I'd love to see the rise of a proper men's rights movement that was much more closely aligned with mainstream feminism, and that was much more critical of those kind of pallid and flaccid and egocentric so-called movements that go by the name of men's rights movements these days. Thanks very much.